Welcome to episode 13 of the DevDecoder podcast, and joining me today is... Who are you?
Are we doing this again?
Yes.
Interesting.
We're back.
I am Beckham.
Beckham?
Someone on the ship used to call me Beckham.
You're kidding.
Seriously.
Why Beckham? That doesn't make any sense.
Because I called her naan bread and she called me Beckham.
That really doesn't enlighten me.
What?
How does calling someone naan bread lead to you being called Beckham?
Because her real name's Nama, so I used to call her naan bread.
Yeah.
And she used to call me Beckham because Rebecca Beckham, David Beckham.
Nope, doesn't work. You might remember we talked a bit about the European Commission and some of the copyright changes and the Articles 11 and 13 and stuff. I was talking about the music industry really driving the copyright. And I thought there was a really, I think, insightful and interesting article this week in the news. And it was saying that the number of people illegally downloading music has halved again. Have you seen this article?
No, but that makes a lot of sense.
So one of the reasons, so what they've said is that it was in 2013, it was somewhere around 18 to 20% of people in the UK, adults in the UK, were illegally downloading music or accessing music illegally, right? And it was much higher before that, before 2013. And now it's down to about 10%. And about 22% of them say that they expect to no longer be downloading music illegally in the next 3 to 5 years.
I think that makes a lot of sense because a lot of people have Spotify now.
Exactly, and that was the main reason for this. So the lesson from this, I think, is really important and something that people in my industry have been saying a long time here, which is that you can try and fight, illegal downloads and bootlegging by, increasing laws and making a much bigger dragnet that catches a lot of legitimate business and a lot of good things that are happening. Or you can actually innovate and you can actually, do something positive and create and change the world and recognize the world is changing and respond to that change in a different way. So, for example, the music industry is heavily geared to making a lot of its money out of selling albums. And actually, for a long time, one of the most profitable parts of the music industry wasn't the sales of the albums, it was the concerts that come off the back of that and the merchandising and all the other things that can come off having an artist in and tour. And, a lot of up-and-coming musicians and bands make most of their money out of the merch and the sales. They don't make them out of the album sales.
I've never been one of those people to go to concerts, so I've been to probably 2 in my entire life, proper concerts. I just... There's
other things you can do as well, like licensing it for TV, licensing it for so there's lots of ways you can make that kind of money. And the reality, for example, they were saying that the most pirated album this year was Beyonce's album that she did with
because that isn't on Spotify.
Yeah, because it was an exclusive.
Yeah.
And because it was on Spotify, then people legally downloaded it. I think it's a large percentage, I think it's 44 something like that, percentage of the people who legally download said they only do it when they can't access it legitimately. Now, this isn't me saying that illegal downloading is good, right, or a proper thing to be doing. I don't think it is. You shouldn't be illegally downloading stuff. And this isn't to encourage people to do that. But it is a message really to the music industry, and I think an important one, which is you can really do a lot of damage by failing to, by protectionism, trying to protect the old way of things occurring, rather than looking at the modern reality and going, how can we change the way we do business to still be effective, still be creative, and actually potentially be more creative and do more things in a way that then doesn't catch up a lot of legitimate business and a lot of legitimate creativity, which is what, a lot of the draconian stuff they've been trying to do more recently. It really comes out as a place of greed and holding on to the old way of working, but the world has moved. It doesn't work that way anymore.
Hi again, Craig.
Hi, Jack.
Hi. So today I thought we were going to talk about where you think the best place for an absolute beginner, never touched a piece of code before, to start getting into coding.
Oh, that's a really good question.
So where's the first place they should be port a call? Or I want to change career, maybe get into software development. What's the first thing they should do?
I think the first place for most people is always Google.
Yeah, but you're going to Google how to code.
Yeah, and actually that's a great way to start because it'll probably send you to places like Codecademy.
Yeah.
There's quite a few of these Codecademy places and equivalents that you can go on. You can start to play with code.
So you think the online tutorials that teach you the basic syntax of code is one of the best places?
No, I do think that that's the starting point for most people, and rightly, therefore, is probably the right starting point for most people.
Yeah.
I think most people are going to be afraid of getting involved socially in,
open source projects or something like that.
All the rest of it until they've at least established they might be interested.
Yeah.
And that's probably going to, rightly or wrongly, involve them doing that on on their own first, just to see. It's like, before you go and attend a dance class, you're probably going to dance around in your bedroom for a little bit, right? It doesn't mean that the best way to learn to dance is to dance around in your bedroom.
You're going to get that level of confidence at least.
So I'm not against people doing that. I think it's a really good idea. And actually, I think that's one of the, I think Codecademy and the equivalents are brilliant for that. Ultimately, though, I always say to my developers that being a software developer is like playing football, not golf. It's a team sport.
Yeah.
You learn a lot more quickly by working with other people and learning off each other. So doing it in your bedroom, in that sense, only gets you so far. You pick up a huge number of bad habits.
Yeah, because there's no one to correct them.
Yeah, and generally... and the other side is, learning off Google is also not a great way of doing it, because for every right answer, there's 10 wrong ones.
Yeah, if you see something that works on Stack Overflow, you have no way of knowing if that's a good solution or not.
Even if it's outvoted, etc. It's a bit like the blind leading the blind a lot. And some of the suggestions, sometimes it's not even that they're wrong. Sometimes it's that they were right 5 years ago and they're not right now. So, if you are going to use Google, sometimes setting the search tools, if you go into search tools, you can say, show me results only in the last year, for example. I always recommend do that. Only look at stuff in the last year, because you'll get yourself very confused if you start allowing yourself to look at suggestions from 10 years ago. It'll say do this, do the rest, you start doing it, none of it works, and that's because it was giving you instructions that are very of the time, and now the system doesn't work that way because this industry moves so quickly. So
you have to be careful with some tutorials as well, because there are some like MVC tutorials that have been around for years, and
they're just completely wrong now.
It'll tell you, right click, press this in Visual Studio, and it's like, well, that's not an option there, so I don't know what the alternative is.
So generally, I always say, okay, so you don't get discouraged, show me results in the last month, or show me the results in the last 6 months, which you can do in Google and the search tools.
And you can always put it further and further back if you can't find what you're looking for.
Exactly, and that way you're getting more up-to-date, relevant information, because this industry moves very quickly. But regardless of all that, it's still better ultimately to go out and join something and get to work with other developers and do that physically, which is an alien concept, unfortunately, for too many developers, but actually physically meet other developers. So
how would you do that for someone who's just started to code and is not aware of hackathons and things like that, which are only people that
Well, if you are a young person, so if you're under the age of 18 or something like that, then going and attending a Coder Dojo is great, and you just Google Coder Dojo.
And they've got different sessions on around the country. And
Code Dojos are great. There's loads of local ones, and we run one here in Oldham, but there's ones all over. There's normally 5 or 6 in a city on different nights. Go along and get involved, and that's a really good thing to do if you're a young person. If you're an older person, so if you're an adult, so you're over the age of 18, then realistically your best option is to go and start getting involved in the tech scene. And at that stage, you are now an adult, so you can go and actually look at forum posts, places like Reddit and stuff like that, and see who the local scene is. Getting involved in hackathons, also great, but to be fair, I think a hackathon can be quite intimidating until you've got at least a little bit of experience.
Because you've got to produce something, so
at least try, and often it's better to go with a team to hackathon. So I would start by just going along to a meetup, and there's a lot of if you Google around, you'll find there's a lot of meetups designed for entrants and people wanting to get into the industry and just get a start.
Well, similar to anything though, if you have a look, there's always things going on when you look for it,
and it requires you to be a bit brave, especially in modern society. So it requires you to go out there and say, I'm going to actually give this a go, which is why ultimately most people are going to start on their own in a bedroom, and then they're going to get a bit brave and say, I need to go out there and find stuff. But it's that second step that's the one that people miss and skip. Don't skip that step. Go out there and get to know people.
Outside of actually your ability to code, things like that look really good on CVs if you're looking for something like that. It's not just showing that you're a competent coder, it's that you're interested and you're not going to burn out.
Exactly. And you've already started building relationships, and you've built up a way of can show you can interact with other developers, and you've shown that you're going to be self-driven in terms of your learning, which is so important in this industry. We're always looking for people that are self-driven and self-motivated.
You always say as well, it's a smaller industry than you think.
Yes.
So you never know who you're going to bump into 5-10 years down the line and be thankful that you've met them before.
I'm constantly banging into the same people in my industry. And it's not because I don't get around. I do get around a lot. And you see people and they move jobs, and you see many jobs, and we stay in touch. And that's one of the things that's wonderful about this industry. But it's like a lot of industries, but it's a very close-knit community. So getting into that community and getting to know people is a great way to start learning. And you'll find it's a very welcoming, open and warm community. If you're actually genuinely passionate about it, you're legitimately interested. So hopefully you can hear from the background that we're at a particularly special event today.
I'm so excited.
This is what we've been talking about coming to for a while. It's the PowerUp conference of the Museum of Science and Industry.
There's so many games and consoles and people
And children.
and children and adults.
Yeah, old gamers like myself. And we're going to go and see if we can find a Nintendo Entertainment System and a Super Nintendo Entertainment System to end a bet.
They're only going to have one of them because they're both the same.
They're not the same, and you're going to see the difference today. Well, now that you've played with both a NES and a SNES, can you see that they are in fact different consoles?
I mean, we played different games, so
So that was the PowerUp Exhibition, and when's it on, Rebecca?
I think it's on to the 19th of August.
So definitely get down here, particularly if you're looking for something to do with your kids. So if you're like me, you're just an old gamer and you want to come and have a massive nostalgia burst, because they've got some incredible consoles here. The old Jaguars here, which was rather famously the one that kind of took Atari down. It's got the Dreamcast, which is also an amazing console. It was Sega's last real foray into console market. It's got all the old Xboxes, it's got all the latest PlayStations, it's got Switches, some high-end PCs as well, and of course all the old micros from the Amiga to the Commodore to the BBC to the Atari. Some fantastic stuff, so definitely worth getting down to come and see.
How much time would you say you spend on social media a day?
Honestly, no more than 10 minutes.
What about on your phone?
On my phone?
Give a number,
hours.
yeah.
Yeah, hours on my phone. I use my iPhone mostly for audiobooks and things. And of course, I'm a bit addicted to Pokemon Go because I do walk a lot.
I can't believe you still play that.
Well, I walk 10k a day, so it kind of makes sense for me to have something to do while I'm walking everywhere. So I normally, whilst I'm walking, and I walk for about 2 hours a day. So for those 2 hours every day, I'm normally doing a bit of Pokemon and listening to an audiobook.
I love the way you say Pokemon.
Yeah.
Pokemon.
How do you get a Pikachu on a bus? Pokemon. Pokemon Go.
Anyway, Facebook and Instagram have now released a time limit tool so you can set how much time you want to spend on that app in a day,
I did see this, yeah.
and then it'll stop you from going on it.
Does it? Or does it warn you?
I don't know.
I think it warns you as you go and go over it or something. I mean,
It'd be better if they stopped you from using it.
I find this fascinating. Facebook, obviously, it's had its worst quarter recently because it's basically dumped
Obvious
all the bad.
reasons.
Yeah, it's dumped all the bad news into one quarter, basically. Although everyone's making a big thing about how much its stock value lost, actually, its stock value went back to more than it was 3 or 4 months beforehand because of the growth rate, and it's going to bounce back up probably quite rapidly after that if it's not already done. I've not been watching, but I do feel like they recognise now they've got a huge PR disaster, and they've had a huge PR disaster, and for the first time, for example, they're really investing in traditional marketing and stuff like that to get the message out that when we recognise we screwed up and we're going to do something about it, and we recognise your privacy and we're getting rid of people who are not your real friends and all these kind of stuff, right? And they're really out there to do it, and I think this is another one of those that they're seeing all the critics. They've kind of got very sensitive to all the criticism being labelled against them, and they're starting to try to address it, which I think is a really good thing, because actually a lot of that criticism is very valid. It's an interesting one, this, because fundamentally they want you to spend as much time as possible on their platform, because that's how they make their money. And so putting something that prevents you from spending as much time as possible on their platform is a really interesting balance for a company like that. So I haven't seen this feature in action yet, so it'll be interesting how it works, but I suspect it'll be a warning rather than literally booting you off. But I do wonder at like what levels will be defaulting, and whether it is based on what's healthy for you or based on what actually they know people spend on it anyway.
Is there an app somewhere where you can see how much time you spent on that app? Because I'm pretty sure there is.
You can on Android. I'm not sure there's an iPhone one. I know that iPhone now allows you to see how much battery usage and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it tells you how much time. I can't remember. I don't think it does. I think it's a positive step forward, and we can be over cynical about companies a lot of the time, whereas I'm a great believer in cock up over conspiracy. I do think that we should give Facebook a little bit of the benefit of the doubt that they've been brave enough to go and make these changes, and let's give them the benefit of the doubt and see what it does, whilst keeping a healthy skepticism about has the leopard really changed its spots here. We'll find out. Only time will tell. But they are losing market share, I think, legitimately. I think they're doing a good job of hiding it to some extent. But realistically, if you look at the younger generations and what they're engaging with, that has to be a deep concern to Facebook.
I just don't think people use it as much anyway, like, especially like the younger generation, the more Instagram and Snapchat now.
Yeah.
So
well, don't forget, they own Instagram, so that's less concerning to them. Yeah. I think that's one of the reasons why Facebook's still a powerful force, is because Instagram's been a good acquisition for them, because it's allowed them to keep the market share effectively. As young people are making that transition, you're still in the same ecosystem.
YouTube, they've joined Instagram and Facebook and Snapchat and now do stories.
No.
Yeah.
I just don't get it. I mean,
I don't know where I've seen this, but I've definitely seen it. And they put like a video up of someone doing like a behind the scenes, like, oh yeah, gonna just prepping for this video. But a YouTube story is going to be different because it's going to be called Reels.
Yeah.
And I think it's for over 10,000 subscribers. And it's never going to disappear. So it's kind of going to be like a behind the scenes, but it's always going to be on there.
So it's really just another form of differentiation in the channel then, isn't it? It's just a way for them to put less interesting content that doesn't muddy their main feed. So
and shorter content.
So it's a very different kind of model still, isn't it? I pretty much subscribe to the stuff that I want to see, and I get my content. To be fair, I don't watch YouTube a lot. There's a few things that I occasionally go on and look for. I think that's mostly about time for me. I don't have a lot of time to consume content, so I generally don't have a huge amount of time to go and watch YouTube. I also find the problem with YouTube for me is that it requires me to sit down and watch it or put my attention on it. It's harder for me. I'm less comfortable just streaming that while I'm walking somewhere. For example, I'm not going to go and watch a YouTube channel while I'm walking somewhere. It takes time out of my day that I just don't have to invest in it. I don't really watch a lot of TV content either. I mean, I don't watch any terrestrial TV. It's been years since I've really watched terrestrial TV. I occasionally watch like BBC Sport or something if there's a game on or something that I want to see. But I very rarely watch a live TV. I don't think I've really, apart from sporting events.
See, I only go on YouTube if I want to watch specific videos. So yesterday I went on to watch how you wrap a burrito.
Yeah. How-tos are very popular on YouTube. And that's generally what I'd watch. But even there, I find them too slow.
You got to forward fast.
Yeah. So I find it a lot. I generally avoid when you do how-tos. The first 3 or 4 results are always YouTube videos, aren't they? And I almost always skip right over them and look for a blog post or something that I can skim much more quickly. So even there, I've largely avoided YouTube now, and I think YouTube's biggest problem is that people are not actually always connected, both either visually or audially, to their content. A lot of times people want to consume their content. If they're using their eyes, they often want to read it because that's quicker and more personal, and it's less invasive and less public, and it's easier if you do. You can pick up and start as you go. You can interrupt yourself. It's much easier to consume content in a read form, I think, than watching it, where you have to find the actual relevant bit. It's harder to find the bit you're interested in. And when it comes to audio, you'd rather use a podcast or something you can listen to without actually focusing on looking at it. So YouTube's in a difficult thing where it's purely about content that we consume as a TV kind of culture. So that kind of TV content, and for that it's very, very good, but it is competing against things like Netflix and Amazon for your time. Because if you think about it, you can't watch a YouTube video whilst watching Netflix. You can't watch a YouTube video whilst watching your TV stream, right? But you can read a blog post, and people are very multi-screen these days. But when people talk about multi-screen, they're playing a game, or
I tend to do that.
Playing a game whilst watching TV, or playing a game whilst doing something, or reading a bit of a blog post whilst watching the TV stuff in the background, right? And I think the point is YouTube sits in that same space of being the background TV thing, the TV content that you can engage with other things whilst you're doing, but it's not something that you can do as a background thing yourself. You have to kind of have it. You can't do it whilst doing something else. I think that's a different kind of model for them. It's a perfectly good model, but it's a very different model.
I just don't think I'd ever watch Reels. I don't think I'd be that invested in it.
No, but I think there are YouTube stars, aren't there? So there are people that genuinely like, PewDiePie is massive, isn't he? And people like that. There are people that are obsessed with YouTube content creators, a few of them, and obsessively follow them in the same way. I think particularly younger people and teenagers, that this is their, you know, rock band, you know, or their movie star.
It's like Zoella, isn't it? She's really popular, isn't she?
And for young people growing up today, you know, in the 50s, people would look to James Dean as their stars and stuff like that. And in the 60s and 70s and 80s, it'd be Beatles and then the rock bands and all the rest of it. They were your heroes, and it'd be football players and people like that. And today's young people, sometimes it's the YouTube content providers that, you know, are seen as the icons that you want to live up to and aspire to be. We look at them in the same way as people used to look at James Dean and the rock bands and think, oh yeah, you know, Paddington's a bar humbug. But they are the modern icons, aren't they? And that's what people ascribe to. I think for them, probably Reels is going to be pretty important. Well, somehow we've managed to survive episode 13, Rebecca. Without anything horrific happening.
Are you sure it's episode 13?
I'm pretty sure now. This is episode 13. Although you should skip it, maybe like a hotel floor or an airplane row.
I think 13's lucky.
I think we've had this conversation.
Yeah, but
And
do they not have a number 13 in hotels?
They often don't have the 13th floor or a room 13
Interesting.
because people don't want to stay in them.
I would.
That says more about you than it does about the hotel. You're listening to DevDecoder Podcast. You can subscribe and like us on all the major podcasting platforms and YouTube.
And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram at DevDecoder.
You can email us using podcast@devdecoder.com.
Or check out our website at devdecoder.com.
We love hearing from all our listeners, so make sure you get in touch and let us know what you'd like to hear about.